And hello again, and here we are out of my drive on quite a windy day with 4 of my current projects wheeled out of the garage. And the reason for that is because I'm getting some work done on the back wall of the garage, so I've got to make a bit of space. But while we're out here, I did think I'd make a little video. Not about that, not about the Z1000, not about the Mark II, but about this bike here, my green Kawasaki Z650. And currently, this bike, the running chassis is done, but the engine needs a complete rebuild, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that full rebuild will be done over the winter. Not by me, but by my mate Les. So that's about to start quite soon. But I was quite surprised if I move over to my Mark II project here, which also doesn't have an engine. But I've been quite surprised at how much I could do even though I don't have an engine. So I've completed pretty much 90% of the wiring harness for the bike. I fitted an M unit, fitted all the dash, all the instrumentation, made new brackets for the lights and so on and so on and so on. Fitted the brake lines, you know, all kinds of stuff that, got on with it. So even though I don't have an engine, I have done an awful lot of work on the bike. So that made me think I could do the same thing for this green Z650 here, because I concentrated on getting the mechanical work done earlier on this year, where I got, you know, the wheels powder coated. We changed the front brakes to those from a Yamaha R6, you know, lots of small work there. But I didn't touch any wiring, you know, didn't think about that yet, and also there's still lots of small jobs to do. So I thought, right, it's turned out quite well working on the Mark II, so I can repeat the process for the green Z650. And so to that end, I just bought myself a new Speedo Tacho unit. This is from Valona again. It's a the make is Daytona, but the particular model is a Valona. I've used that before. It's a combined Speedo Tacho unit with all the idiot lights built in. So that can go on the bike like that. And I've got to make a bracket to fit it to the existing mounts on the top yoke. So that's a job I can do in the next few days. What I can also do is work out a way of mounting the magnetic Speedo sender for that Speedo on the front forks. I can do that. And what I can also do is make a start on the wiring for the bike. I was a bit too keen when I'd stripped down the bike, because I just cut away all the wiring, because I thought, well, I don't need it, it's in a bit of a bad state anyway. So I was planning to just start again, so that's what I'm going to do. But I think now, having an M unit on the bike simplifies the wiring so much, I might invest in yet another M unit. I mean, they're not cheap. You can no longer get the basic version, so the blue version, which includes Bluetooth connectivity to your phone, blah, blah, blah. That's getting on for £300. You then got to get the matching so-called momentary contact switches for the handlebars. But as luck would have it, I've already got a set of those. Not made by Motor Gadget, the gym company, but made by another company that I bought some time ago, and I didn't end up using them on a different project, so they can go on the bike. So yeah, I think that's what I'll be doing in the next few weeks. I'll get the instruments mounted, the indicators, do all the wiring, get the M unit on, and hopefully by the time the engine's completely rebuilt, it's going to be quite a simple process just to put it in the bike, wire it all up with the wiring I've already done, and that's the bike completed. Well, in theory. So that's the reason why I'm talking about the green Z650 at the moment. Yeah, so step one then is to get this out of the box, work out how I'm going to mount it to the top yoke. Now, as it turns out, the top yoke's already got some mounting bosses cast in to the top yoke, so I can use them. I think they're threaded as well, so that's fine. So just take off from these two mounts, make a bracket of some kind, and away we go. So that's the first job I've got to do. So we'll continue this video when I'm doing that. But yeah, so far so good. Of course, recently I did make the new stainless steel engine mounts to the bike. They turned out quite well. So yeah, we've still got a lot of work to do before the engine's complete. But as I say, I'm not doing the engine. That's being done by my friend Les when he recuperates from his illness over there at home. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll be done sometime this winter. So we'll begin then by making the bracket for this thing. And so now it's the next day and it's actually pouring down outside, so all the bikes are back in my garage along with the green Z650 tucked away here in the corner. So I've got to work in this very small space, but we'll do our best, we'll do our best. So what I've just done is bolt back on the ignition barrel to the bike, and I've just measured the distance centre to centre of the two bosses that are cast into the top yoke to mount the original instrumentation. Turns out it's about 105 millimeters, would you believe? So I can't really get the camera in here with me, so I'll take a photograph and you can see what I'm looking at right now. So my next task then is to take my new Daytona Vilhona digital Speedo Tacho unit and find a way of mounting it to the bike. So it comes with a sort of a Y-shaped or V-shaped bracket on the back here, which I guess you could, you know, put some sort of clamp on there and clamp it to the handlebars. That's pretty simple, but it looks pretty awful. So instead, we'll get rid of that V-shaped mount and make our own, which pick up from the existing mounts on the top yoke. So it'll end up looking something like that. And to do that, what I need is some cardboard engineering. So I'm going to go and find some cardboard. I'll cut out a shape that clears this ignition barrel, and then from that we can make it in aluminium, and then away we go. I'm not sure if I've got an appropriate amount of aluminium somewhere, but I probably have. I've got an offcut somewhere, so yeah, I can do that. So next then, I'm going to go and find some cardboard, some scissors and a pen, and I'll draw out the shape that I need. Okay, so now I've got pretty much the shape that I want. A bit rough and ready, but there you go. I've just bolted it down loosely, so when this is in place, it should look something like that. Something like that. And now I've spent a bit more time working on the design of my little cardboard template, and now I'm pretty happy with this one. I did try out a few different ideas, such as this rather thin version here, but I didn't really like it, so I'm sticking with this particular design. So on the bike it looks something like that. I guess you can't see very well. I will try with the camera in a minute, but with the headlamp back in place I can make sure I've got enough clearance behind the Speedo, which I have. So now what I've got to do is find some suitable aluminium plate, probably 4mm should do, cut it out with a hacksaw, file it, drill it, and hopefully it'll look okay on the bike. And so I've managed to find this offcut of aluminium. It's about 3mm thick, so it should be fine. So drawn around my template here. So now, with that done, I can very quickly, well, say quickly, saw around this, file it, cut it, and hopefully it'll look okay when I've finished. And so now I've just finished hacksawing out the crude shape, and now the real work begins of filing this back to the correct shape. And so now here we have my original template, and here's the finished article. Well, almost finished. I've not got to bend it, but I'm not quite sure how much yet. So here's the Speedo unit here. That's too flat, so I need to bend it, so it'll be something like that. And so to bend this bracket, I've got my big lump hammer, which I don't want to be hitting on the aluminium because it'll damage it. So I'm also using this block of wood. So the block of wood goes there, and I hit the block of wood with the hammer. So here goes. Yeah, it's starting to go. Yeah, that's not bad actually, it's gone quite well. A little bit more. And so at last I finished fabricating my bracket. What I didn't show you is that I've also rounded off any sharp edges on the bracket, because paint doesn't like sharp edges. It tends to flake off sharp edges, so I've got rid of those. And to paint this thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all give it 2 coats of etch primer, followed by a few coats of satin black. This is so-called tough paint. In my experience it's not that tough, but on the bike this bracket's not exposed to the elements that much, so it should be fine. And if not, I'll just take it off one day and get it powder coated or hard anodized or something like that. Now it's quite a cold day today, so before I start painting I'm going to warm this thing up with a hairdryer just to get some heat into it, and I'm also going to put these rattle cans in a little bath of warm water just to warm up the paint a little bit and helps it to adhere and not clog up on the nozzle. And so that's what's next. And now here we are, it's the next day. The satin black paint is now cured and dried, and I've got the Speedo and bracket bolted to the bike at last, so it looks pretty good. I guess you can't see it very well from over there, but don't worry, I'll put up a photograph now so you can see it a bit better. So it actually wasn't that difficult to make. If you've never made a simple bracket before, then give it a go. It doesn't take that much effort really. That took me about 2 hours of faffing around in my garage here, and to make it I only used these few tools. I used obviously a hacksaw, hang on, don't drop it, a hacksaw to cut out the shape. I then used 2 different kinds of hand file. This is a flat file here, doing all the straight bits, and a halved round file for doing the curves. I've also got various different kinds of files, but you don't really need them. I also of course used a vernier caliper to help me measure where the hole should go. I used a dot punch to mark where the hole should go, then my hand drill to drill the holes. Do all that, of course, I also need to use my vise, which is bolted down to my workbench. But if you've got those things, then give it a go. It's not that difficult. And you know, the world's your oyster really. You can make anything you like. A simple bracket like this, you could shape it however you like. Right, so that done, the next task for me is to start work on the engine build. So the engine's been sitting in my friend's workshop for the last 2 years, slowly corroding away, and now at last the time's come to start the rebuild of the engine. And what we're going to do is completely strip it down to the last nut and bolt, get the case blasted and treated, and then rebuild it with some new parts such as the cam chain, the Hyvo chain, and of course all new gaskets and anything else it might need. And so that will be covered in the next 2 or 3 videos. And so until then, thanks for watching and cheers.